Well, hi there. So in this video, we're going to take a look at FRQ prep number 1 for the very last unit in economics. And in fact, we're coming in for a landing on the end of, just threw a staple on myself. What the heck? Coming in for an end on economics this year. Woo! Suppose the United States and China are the only two countries in the world. Draw a correctly labeled graph of the Forex market for dollars showing the equilibrium. The currency in China is the yuan. Okay. So it actually doesn't want the other currency. It doesn't want the yuan market. It just wants the dollar market. So that's the US dollar, demand for the dollar, supply of the US dollar. Okay. That one's done. On the graph you drew in part A, indicate a fixed exchange rate set below the equilibrium exchange rate. Does the fixed exchange rate lead to a surplus or shortage? Explain and show on your graph. So if it's below, right, then that's, the equilibrium, and then that's the, we'll just say like EF, the fixed rate. And we know that if the quantity demanded is larger than the quantity supplied, we call that a shortage. Okay. And so that, explain, we've explained, like that's the explanation. To bring the foreign exchange market back to equilibrium, would the US government need to buy or sell dollars? On the graph you drew in part A, illustrate how the government buying or selling dollars would bring the rate back to the desired rate. So thinking about like the government could buy dollars. If they buy dollars, then the demand curve goes like that, and it makes the shortage even bigger. And if they sell dollars, then that means they're supplying more dollars, and so it makes the supply curve go like that. And so they do need to sell dollars. And in theory, like if they do it exactly right, then they push it right back to where it was. So we do need to probably say though for part C, sell USD to increase the supply of USD. And then part D says, suppose that instead of buying or selling dollars, the Fed was going to engage in monetary policy to bring it back to this rate. Should the Fed buy or sell treasury bonds in an open market operation? Explain. And it's probably easier if we do part D down here, then we can just kind of work through it. So thinking about like if the Fed, and let's kind of work through like both of these scenarios, right? And then we'll see which one is right. If the Fed buys bonds, then therefore the supply of money goes up and the interest rate goes down. If the Fed sells bonds, therefore the supply of money goes down and the interest rate goes up. Now, the interest rate is really what we're going to be concerned with here. If the interest rate goes up, there's an increased demand for assets that pay interest, right? Interest-bearing assets. And so therefore, there's an increased demand for US dollars. If the interest rate goes down, the demand for assets, interest-bearing assets paying interest, go down. And so the demand for dollars goes down. And so we're kind of looking at this and saying like, well, which of these, right, would solve that initial problem, right? Imagine that supply curve wasn't there. Well, if we push the demand curve and increase it, then it makes the problem worse. It makes the shortage worse. But if we reduce the demand, right, then it can solve that problem. If we go like whoop right back down to here, it'll solve that and solve the issue of the shortage. So we want demand to decrease. Sorry, I underlined that. We want demand to decrease for the US dollar, which means we need the demand for assets to go down, which means we need the interest rate to go down, which means we need to buy bonds. And so we've explained, so what I'm going to do is just draw a line through the stuff that isn't what we want it to do, right? And you can do that on an AP test. You may not have an enormous amount of time on an AP test, but you just can scratch it out, and you can say that's the goal. They buy bonds because the money supply gets bigger, the interest rate goes down, the demand for assets decreases, and so the demand for the dollar decreases, and that would do basically the same thing as the increasing the supply up here. All right, hopefully that helped you. See you next time.